All right. Training area. So let's start with a greatsword. So the greatsword, as you might expect from its name, is a two-handed sword. It is a sword, and it is great. The greatsword's gimmick is charging up your slashes. There's sort of a level 1, level 2, level 3 thing going on. So you have your level 1, which is basically nothing. Whoops. You have level 2, which is you kind of glow a little. And then you have your level 3. You got a little flex, you release, and you deal the most damage. The greatsword, at its core, is a... I know exactly where the monster's going to land. So I have my charge ready to hit the monster. Opportunist style weapon. Now, that's like the surface of the greatsword. There's actually 3 types of charges too. So you have the one where it goes over your shoulder. You have the one where you're wound back like this. And you have one where you have like a bigger over the shoulder swing called the true charge slash. And knowing when to get into the stances to do the 3 different charges is integral to using the greatsword. Because sometimes you may only be able to get a level 2 charge off rather than going full on for that true charge slash, right? So it's definitely a weapon where if you like being patient, if you like being an opportunist, like I said, it's definitely a weapon you want to pick up. And it's a very satisfying weapon, too, when you actually learn monster animations and you learn how to land the hits. There are a couple other things. That shoulder bash is important. Whoops. That shoulder bash right there is important because... yeah, the tackles. Because you have super armor on them, so you can basically shoulder tackle through attacks. I think you can do them after a roll. Wait, I went through this before, didn't I? Where I was like, wait, how do you do this after a roll? Yeah. So, you can tackle after a roll, after your charge slashes. Guard kick tackle. Oh, that's cool. Oh yeah, if you guard, you can kick. It doesn't really do much. Yeah. You also do have like a... you have like that little shield slap. You have this like follow-up wide slash. You can even do that if you really want to. Yeah, it's a big hits, slower weapon. I'm not a great sworder, by the way. I may be the one great sworder that's not in my chat right now. Or non-great sworder. Can you block? Oh, some weapons can. They'll have shields. We'll get to that, because there are different levels of blocking. I'll just point this out real quick. That the greatsword can block. It's just, it's the weakest block in the game, and it's really only used as an emergency. Most weapons rely on dodging. Weapons with shields, though, are obviously the ones that block. But I'm just going to go through the weapons in order. So, the longsword is a giant katana. And sort of the thing that it does is you have this gauge in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Below... wait, I have a mouse. It'll be over here. And you build up that gauge with your normal attacks. Is it circle? All right, there you go. And then you sort of like press the shoulder button. You do the spirit slash, and now the gauge will glow. It goes from white to yellow to red, and that's a power up to your attacks. You got to build it up every time. But you generally want to have it in red. Just for damage sake. And you can see your weapon glows with that color. So it has one of the most interesting abilities in the game. I don't remember how to do. I don't use the longsword, so no, it's that's it. So yeah, if you go to your, oh, we gotta build the gauge up again. You do like a spirit, build up your spirit gauge a little bit. You sort of start your spirit slash. You can do this ability called the foresight slash, and that little spin around is kind of a counter, so you'll avoid taking damage. And I believe if you land a foresight slash on a monster, you instantly get the next level of your gauge built up. So you don't have to go through the full spirit combo and land the last hit. Now, there's another resource you have at your disposal, which is the, I want to say it's called the Spirit Helm Breaker, and I actually have to look up, believe it or not, how to do this move, because okay, it's RB and Y, because I don't play this weapon really that much. So yeah, if we do this, we can jump off monsters and do this giant anime slash and miss. Let's see if we can hit the pole again. You'd think with the SNS I'd be more used to aiming a damn jump attack, but you'd be wrong. There we go. You can see it used up the powered up gauge when we did that. But that Spirit Helm Breaker deals an absolute crap ton of damage. And I think is the main reason a lot of people play this game, or this weapon, because it is so, like, over-the-top anime. But yeah, if you like, I don't know, anime, yeah. That would be a weapon to pick up. My personal favorite weapon group in the entire series is the sword and shield. So we have a sword and we have a shield. So this weapon is our first shielded weapon. It has, I guess you could say, the weakest shield in the game, not counting the great sword. The shield is more of an emergency action. It has a lot of knockback on it. Well, hit recovery on it, compared to the other weapons with shields. Unlike the other weapons with shields, which we'll get to, this is a very mobile weapon, very fast weapon. You're going to be doing lots of chops and comboing as opposed to one or two big hits, unlike the great sword. It's faster than the longsword. Yeah, and you have a lot of utility with it. So you not only do your chopping, you effectively have an infinite combo. You have this backstep, which you can combo into and technically out of a little bit. Like, it basically can reset your combo. And when you get a fully charged back hop off and hit a target with the attack, you launch yourself in the air. And you can use this to mount monsters with the slash, or you can use it to deal pretty massive damage for the sword and shield with that shield drop. And you can pretty much just combo it to itself. But you're pretty much always going to be underneath the monster, just beating the crap out of it. Because also this backstep has iframes, so you can use it as an evasive ability. You can also shield bash, and this deals impact damage. And if you deal enough impact damage to a monster's head, you knock it out. So it'll be knocked on the ground and have like stars around its head. And it'll be vulnerable for a short period of time. What else? You can use items while the weapon is out. So if you need like a quick heal, you can just throw back the item. So like life potters here heal the entire team in the area. So the SNS can basically pop it and keep going without having to sheath. And yeah, sheathing doesn't take a lot. Neither is unsheathing in this game, but it's still really handy. You can also access your slinger with this. And your slinger is this little slingshot on your arm. And the sword and shield can access it while the weapon is out. No other weapon can do this. So if you very quickly need to launch a flashbang or a dung pod or something, the sword and shield can do it and keep up the pressure. It can also shoot up to these wedge beetle things that are on a lot of the maps with the weapon out. Lastly, the sword and shield is the first weapon I'll mention the sliding attacks with. So you can do certain attacks down hills. The only reason I mention it is because you get that little jump attack, and that can also be used to mount monsters. So yeah, sword and shield is the limitlessly versatile weapon. You want to do a little bit of everything, it can do it. Oh yeah, also, you can launch yourself going up hills, and you can launch yourself off of hills. So you always got to be conscious of slopes, or I said hills, cliff edges. You can launch yourself off cliff edges. You can throw yourself down slopes to get mounts. So it's something you always got to be conscious of, is where the wedge beetles are, where the hills are, and where the edges are you can jump off of, if you're going for mounts. Little subtle thing I learned more recently is you can, normally this back hop requires you to buffer it. So essentially you do an attack, or you do a roll, and you can get into the back hop. But you can also do it out of a guard. Oops. And I do it, it's a little easier to do it faster like that. It's not weird to me that you use your left hand for all of your items, because I'm left-handed. Yeah, so the character going to the left to pull out an item doesn't weird me out at all. Yeah, so SNS, very combo-y if you like fast attacking and basically being a jack of all trades. You can be a tank, support, damage dealer, you can do it all with the SNS. It's why it's my favorite weapon in the series. Dual blades are very much like the SNS in that you are a fast attacker, but you basically trade more damage and faster attacks for all your utility. You have a gauge below your health bar, sharpness meter, like the longsword. And when you activate this, you essentially attack faster and just dish out way more damage. You build up a gauge called the Demon Gauge. And you do these like crazy big combos. It does use stamina while it's up. And once the gauge is full, you attack faster without it. And you have access to that Demon Flurry Rush outside of your Demon mode. Yeah, and you also flip the blades upside down and ninja run. I can't show it in the training room, but this is one of the weapons with an insanely notable slide attack. Whoops. I don't know how you do it, actually. I think... Oh, yeah. So, if you land that attack where you do that little flurry in the air, you sort of, like, land on the monster and, like, spin down their body. You can be successful with every single weapon in this game. This game is spectacularly well balanced. But yeah, dual blades, there isn't really much to say, because it's basically attacking. You're always just attacking. You're always just sitting here, just attacking. And it's like you're basically running up to a weak point on the monster and just going crazy. I mean, yeah, there are some weapons that are better than others. Charge blade, bow, heavy bowgun. They'll probably kill things faster. They'll definitely kill things faster. But it's not saying that the other weapons are bad. And usually when you get to the stronger weapons, they only get ridiculously strong in the hands of, like, the people who've mastered them. So, like, I'm terrible with a bow in this game. So if I tried to use a bow on something, I'd fail a lot. So that's why, like, SNS, though, I think I'm pretty not bad with it. Alright, so this is the hammer. The hammer only deals bludgeon damage. Only deals blunt damage. So you want to get to a monster's head, stay on the head, and just keep hitting the head, because you'll knock the monster out. That's your goal and your role as a hammer user if you choose this weapon. That's its basic combo. It's 1, 2, 3 punch. You also have the Big Bang combo, where if you land that first hit, you basically chain all that together. The shoulder button lets you charge up the hammer. And there are 3 levels to it. So you have level 1 hit, the level 2 hit, which is that upswing, and then the level 3 hit is the super pound. And usually the better moves are the up hit and the super pound, because this can actually, like, get under a monster really quickly and get a hit in. And if you're moving around when you have the level 3 charge, you do this, like, comical spinning bludgeon attack, which I don't recommend doing. So, like, if you're going for super pounds, you pretty much take your finger off the stick to do them. And you can also, if you're charging up and you hit... Or is it just both buttons? Yeah. Just hit B, you do a power charge, and now your charge attacks are slightly different. So this is your super pound now. Deals more damage. The upswing has, like, a bigger upswing. And then the level 1 charge is pretty normal. Oh yeah, and you can also combo from your level 1 charge. And you can combo into the charge to keep up the pressure. The only thing you can't combo off of is the super pound. And the last thing is, with the hammer, if you're going down a hill and you do a charge up, you do the slide, release the charge, and you do this big old spin attack. And the spinning, each one of those spins is a hit. So you can get a lot of hits off with that mid-air spinning bludgeon. It's a fairly simple weapon. I recommend the hammer for most beginners because it teaches you how to aim. And it teaches you movement while keeping its combo simple. So this is our other bludgeoning weapon. This is the hunting horn. And the hunting horn, you sort of just, with this attack, you swing it around. You got like 3 attacks. You can pretty much combo everything together. And every hit has a note associated to it. So when you get in that little music bar there, when you get a series of notes associated to the songs on your horn together, you play a song. So we just did the movement up, attack up, what was it? Negate, back hit, negate, stun, whatever. The negate little hits thing that the hunting horn gets. So now we run a little faster and we hit a little harder. So what you want to do, so let's say we want to get attack up. We do that note, that note, that note, and we jump into our recital, we get attack up small, and then we do the encore recital and we get attack up large. Now you don't need to be hitting to actually land those. Or to get the notes ready. So you can basically stand back and do some buffing. But generally, you want to mix your attacks together with doing the songs and the buffing against the monster, because your recital hits still deal a lot of damage. So we just did our wind pressure negate song on this. And then if we do like this note, whoops, wrong notes. Yeah, you basically are like a support, but you're not a support, right? You're still dealing DPS. You're still dealing bludgeon damage so you can get knockouts. It's just you're also buffing the entire hunting party while you're at it, including yourself. So it's actually a really strong weapon that people look at it as a support weapon and then don't pick it up and play it. Because of that stigma that a quote-unquote support weapon has. But if you like buffing yourself and your team while also dishing out DPS, that's the weapon to go with. So this is the first of our big shield weapons, the lance. As you can see, we have nowhere near the hit stun the sword and shield has. And lance, you do pokes. You poke, you poke, you poke, you back up. You poke, you poke, you poke, you back up. At least on the surface. You do both attack buttons together, you get that swipe. You can combo into and out of the swipe. Yeah, and that's it for the basic attacks. But there's a lot of little things with the lance. The lance is for people who are kind of type A personalities. It's probably why I gravitated towards it way back in Monster Hunter Tri, along with the sword and shield. Because you'll pick apart a monster and not give an ever-loving crap about them while you're doing it. Because the lance has the best defensive options in the game, while also maintaining your offense. So from our guard, if we hit our top attack button, it's going to be Y on the Xbox controller, triangle on the PS4 controller. We get that guard dash. And out of that guard dash, we can do a shield bash into pokes. Or we can do a big ol' leap thrust into pokes. And that can help us move around. Because the lance looks like it moves slow, right? But it doesn't actually move that slow once you learn how to integrate this into your movement abilities. Oh yeah, you also have like a big back step after your attacks with this one that the other guard weapons don't have. If you want to pull back, that is. Now, out of a shield, if we hit the other attack button, we do that. We do a counter stance. If at any point during that we are hit, we will do a counter attack, which is that up thrust. So if we're hit, you automatically do that. You can cancel it early to keep poking. And you sort of learn how to time your counters properly against monster attacks, so that you can actually just counter on the fly. You can combo into and out of the counter stance, so you can keep your attacks going, keep your forward momentum going, if you don't want to cancel it with the back hop. Now there's another counter stance that the lance has, where if you enter this and hit X or A, you do the power guard. Now that drains your stamina to stay in that, but this basically is like a super counter, because this counter stance, the normal one, only works for attacks that come from the front. The power guard works for all attacks, regardless of their direction they're hitting you. You also get these two options out of it to do a harder hitting up thrust, or you get the option to do this big poke attack. So this basically lets the lance play ultra defensively without losing their offensive capabilities. And there's one more ability. If you're guarding and you hit both attack buttons, you start a lance charge. And this lance charge goes until you run out of stamina. You'll eventually hit a speed up point. You can turn around with it. You can use it to slide down hills real fast. You can cancel it into a guard. You can jump. Whoop. You can jump with it. And that jump attack can mount monsters. And then you can do a thrust at the end. That actually deals pretty good damage. So, like, a common combo for this is to do, like, poke, 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 the charge thrust, because it deals a lot of damage. Shielders... no, anyone can slide down hills. It's just you all have different attacks that do it. I was just showing on the shield weapons and on the hammer, because they have the notable... They have the really notable slide attacks. But yeah, the lance is... It's essentially the tank, but like how the hunting horn is a quote-unquote support, this is a quote-unquote tank, and is actually a really potent weapon. Really potent weapon, regardless. Oh yeah, you can do those little dash steps too. Here goes. Okay, so the gun lance. This is a big shield weapon, like the lance. So you can see we're going to get the same amount of hit stun. And we get the same 3 pokes, essentially, that the lance has. However, instead of having the up pokes on the other attack button, we shoot a gun. Hence, gun lance. Now, if you spam the shots, you eventually do this attack, the Wormstake Cannon, which is okay. I don't use it. I don't use it because you can't combo out of it. And if you hit both buttons together, you do this Rising Slash. You don't have a counter, and you're generally going to be playing it differently based on the type of shelling you have. All right, see you later, Juno. Thank you for coming. Have a good night. How am I going to explain this? Okay, so if you look at the stat block here on the gun lance, over here you can see shelling type and shelling level. The level is basically how strong the shots are on the weapon. And the shelling type determines the number of shots you have and their individual strength, but it also carries other bonuses with it. So for a normal gun lance, you have, by default, 5 shots. They're the weakest shots, but they have the strongest burst fire. Now, a burst fire, I haven't even gone into the combos yet, because every gun lance shelling type has different combos and plays completely differently. So, for a normal gun lance, you pretty much have to learn to do this up slash to this overhead smash. And when you hit the fire button there, you do a burst fire. Then you can attack and do a wide sweep, and then do a quick reload. Oh yeah, by the way, you have a quick reload that just reloads your shelling. All of them. So if you've done a bunch of shots, you can quick reload. And you can combo into a quick reload and out of a quick reload. So, gotta get that mechanic out of the way. So what you want with a normal gun lance is you want to rotate around to doing that. And then you can basically, essentially, infinite combo with the gun lance, like this. And it deals a metric butt ton of damage. It's a little on the slow side. You're about as mobile as the lance. Like, obviously you step as slow as the lance, but you have abilities like this, the lunging up thrust to get in. You don't have that, like, super back hop. No, you do have that super back hop. Womp womp. I never use it. I'm always doing the forward hops. So, yeah, it's... Once you get used to the slowness of your walking around, you actually do keep up with monsters. So, yeah. That's just one shelling tip. Oh, right. And every gun lance has a Wyvern's Fire, which is this giant charge-up super blast that goes on a cooldown. With the skill, you can get it down to, I believe... Is it 60 seconds? 45 seconds, I think. I think it's 90 by default. Oh, I'm actually going to equip that set. So the two other shelling types are long and wide. Long has 3 by default. Wide has 2. There is a skill that gives you 1 more shell in your magazine. And for wide gun lances, this is long, but I'm going to say for wide, you're pretty much going to do like shot, shot, poke, shot, reload, shot, shot, poke, shot, or some combination of poke, shot, poke, reload after your third shot. For long gun lances like this one, wide has the strongest individual shellings because you only get 2 or 3 of them. Long has medium in terms of its shelling damage. But long gun lances have the strongest charge shelling, which is after you do pretty much any attack, you hold the shot button and you charge up the shot. And you basically, with the long gun lance, repeat this. And it deals a pretty good amount of damage. Yeah, the gun lance is insanely complicated because of its shelling. And I'm sure I didn't explain it well enough just then. Because you kind of have to get an intuition for all 3 shelling types if you want to really master the weapon. And you generally are going to end up using only a handful of gun lances. Because you want the highest shelling damage you can get. And that's level 4. And not a lot of gun lances have level 4 across the 3 shelling types. Oh, yeah, and the special thing about shelling damage, is it is fixed. So it will always deal the same amount of damage to any monster, no matter where you hit it. The advantage of that is, if a monster has some form of, armored skin that most weapons bounce off of, the gun lance just doesn't care. Oh yeah, every weapon has a lot of combos. Hell, even the gun lance just doing that, where you're slapping, is actually one of its strongest combos the weapon has. Oh, and you haven't even seen anything yet. We haven't even gotten to the charge blade, or the switch axe. This is one of my favorite weapon groups in the game. Probably number 2 after Sword and Shield. In the PS4 version of the game, I mained this and did like 600 quests with it. Sort of switched it around in this version of the game. What else? I think about covered this weapon. It's sort of a bruiser. You're not a tank, but you're also not, like... You deal a lot of damage while also being tanky. But you're not like a true tank. You're not a defensive thing. Alright, I need a sip of water for this one. So, now we get into the two, like, really weird weapons. This is the switch axe. We have axe mode. We press the shoulder button, we go into sword mode. Now, axe mode, you sort of move around at about the speed the faster weapons move around at. In sword mode, you're very slow. So you can utilize that. You can utilize axe mode to get in, start combos, and then swap over to sword mode when you're in to dish out some damage. Now this has 2 gauges you keep track of. One for sword mode, and every attack you do in sword mode reduces that green gauge you see on the left side of the screen. But you can also see kind of a glow building up around the weapon icon. And when that glow is full up, we deal these like little bonus damages because our weapon is radiating what's called file energy. And in the case of this switch axe, it's just bonus damage. Now attacks in axe mode refill that gauge. So you can kind of see up in the corner that the gauge is refilling. It sort of refills on its own over time. But every axe attack we deal refills the green gauge in the middle. But the gauge on this, for the file energy, slowly goes away over time. So the switch axe is about balancing the charge on your sword and the file energy bonus damage. Now what makes this weapon really fun and intricate is you can change between your modes after any attack. So if we just do a basic attack here, we can swap into sword mode and swap axe to axe mode. We can literally go into either mode from any attack we want. And there are different ways of transforming too. So you saw me do like that fade slash there. So if we're in sword mode and we hold back in the transform button, we do that move. Handy for getting away from things. We have this sort of running jab attack, and we can go right into that attack, the morph slash. And it actually has like a little forward step to it. I believe there's like a fade. There's like a fade back attack with this too. There's a lot of like little subtle movement things with these. And you can do things like roll into your transforms as well. So you can actually like shoot yourself across the map by doing a roll into your attacks. So yeah. What this weapon amounts to is knowing your combos to sort of maximize your gauges. And I'm not the best at switch axing, but I know this attack right here, this change attack, it deals a lot of damage, builds a lot of gauge back up, and lets you get into sword mode with a healthy file gauge. Yeah, and then just doing the double slash and then doing a little hop double slash can get you your file energy built up really quickly. So yeah, very combo-y. It's not as complicated as it sounds, because once you get using it, you get used to it, and you kind of find your way of utilizing your gauges. Oh, and there's one more ability. Yeah. It's the Elemental Discharge and the Elemental Discharge finisher. Basically, it uses up a ton of your sword gauge to deal a lot of damage. And when your file energy is actually glowing like this, I can't show it in the training room, you sort of jump on the monster, stab the weapon into wherever you're holding on to and basically inject it with file energy. So yeah, that's a really complicated weapon that actually is much more simple than it seems when you get used to it. Now, really complicated... you can play on either. I play on both. Now, a really complicated weapon that remains complicated forever is the Charge Blade. So, this looks like the Sword and Shield, but it's got a bigger shield. And as you would expect, it blocks not bad. I'd probably say it blocks about like a Sword and Shield in its default mode. So, to start this off, we have Sword and Shield mode, and then Axe mode. This, you can pretty much swap between them after every combo. And you can see that in Sword and Shield mode, we're moving at about the speed of the regular Sword and Shield. In Axe mode, you are probably the slowest walking... No, I think maybe Heavy Bowgun is about that slow. One of the slowest walking modes, I guess, in the game. So what you do with this weapon is as you hit in Sword and Shield mode, you build up those files in the corner. You have 5 by default. You can get a 6 with a skill. And when you build up those files, you can load them into your shield, which I did already with that move. Now when they're loaded into the shield and you hop into Axe mode, you'll have certain attacks apply those little explosions on things. Those deal extra damage, and in the case of this Charge Blade, it's impact damage. So it actually will KO monsters if you hit them enough with that. And you pretty much have to keep building them up. If you have yellow with that charge up, that fills up 3. If you have red, it fills up the entire sheath of them. And that's what it is at its most simple. Because things get complicated from here on out, believe it or not. That's not the complicated part I just explained. So, we have our sheath of files. What we can do is we can charge up both the shield and the sword. So this charge attack right here is actually not why it's called the Charge Blade. So, in Sword and Shield mode, after any attack, if we hit both face buttons, we do that shield thrust. Actually, I think I should explain it like this, because that's part of the combo to do it quickly. So in Axe mode, if we hit both of the face buttons, we will do this attack, the Amped Elemental Discharge. If we do an Amped Elemental Discharge, we can cancel it by hitting the shoulder button. That puts all of our files we had charged up into the shield. And now you can see our shield is glowing a little red, and we have that pink shield icon next to our files. What this means is we now guard slightly less worse than a lance/gun lance. Still not at that level though. And our axe attacks in Axe mode are going to deal more damage. So you can see if we do that, we're going to be dealing more damage with the actual axe hits. It also changes the way our Super Amped Elemental Discharge works. So by default, it looks like this. You have to actually cancel into that mode. But now that we have our shield charged, if we do that ability, just let it rip, we do that big-ass attack. And spamming that big-ass attack is how this weapon deals its damage. And it's a lot of damage. Now you can do all of this very quickly from Sword and Shield mode. Because if you do any attack, the shield thrust, and then hit the 2 face buttons again, you do the Super Amped Elemental Discharge. Which means if you need to charge up your shield very quickly, let's get the files built up, you can pretty much boom, 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 whoops, boom. All charged up. Now, let's get some more files. Oh yeah, you do overheat the blade if you don't load the files into the shield, but that's really easy to do, obviously, and you're going to be doing a lot anyways, so it's almost a non-issue to worry about that. Now, if we load up and hold triangle, you do a charge, and then that attack for the condensed elemental slash, and now our sword is charged up with file energy. So now we get little bonus damage explosions on our sword attacks. Oh, yeah, I forgot about those. So with the charged sword, you're adding the file damage onto your attacks, so it actually will KO monsters, dealing bonus damage with every hit. And the shield, all charged up, blocks heavily, enhances your axe attacks. Now the condensed elemental slash charge on your sword doesn't last a long time, so you do have to constantly go back and get it, which isn't a problem. Oh, and your shield needs to be charged up in order to get that, because your shield charge will go away eventually, and you have to recharge it. There's more. So after any attack in sword and shield mode, if you hold a direction button and hit circle, you do these sliding attacks, which are really handy for positioning, as you would imagine. So you kind of got to get used to using those as well. Hey, Loris. Yeah, it's a 900 IQ weapon that is actually insanely simple, because you pretty much just go into Unga mode with this to go for the super amped elemental discharges. There's actually more. This is why I said this is the most complicated weapon in the game, probably. So, this weapon has a special feature called guard points. Guard points are whenever you have your shield facing a monster during certain moves, you'll get a free block out of it. Hang on. We're losing our shield charge. What I mean by that... Oh, right, your shield punch actually does file energy when your shield is charged up, too. Just to throw that out there. So, what this means is, if we know an attack is incoming, we can do certain moves to insta-block them. So, the weapon transition, when you put the sword in the shield, and this weapon transition, when we sort of point that shield forward, both have guard points. Meaning that if we do that as a monster's attack hits us, we will actually block it, and we can hold that for a little bit in order to guard attacks. And I don't know if it's going to be evident here, but you can see that little yellow flash when we do a guard point. That's actually file damage exploding out of the shield from a guard point, which is what a normal guard doesn't have. So with this weapon, you kind of got to figure out two weapon modes. You have to know how to charge your weapon up, how to keep it charged up, when to charge it up, when to do the big Unga slashes, when to do the not big Unga slashes. You need to know your guard points. You need to know when to do your guard points. Oh, and with guard points, the reason they're important is we can do these right out of them. So we can attack out of guard points. We can load files out of guard points. You can do a lot of things out of your guard points because they're essentially a free quick block. But yeah, part of the whoops, that was too late or too early. So yeah, like the biggest one is just learning to get this off because you can go straight into your big super amps. So yeah, if you like obscenely intricate combos and resource management, which I don't mind, This is probably my third favorite weapon. And looking awesome, because the combos are actually really cool looking. The abilities are amazing looking. This is the weapon for you. I think I covered all the intricate points of a Charge Blade. Alright, Insect Glaive. So the Insect Glaive. You can see on our right arm, we have this little bug. And you can see we're holding a glaive. Hence, Insect Glaive. So, this is a faster attacking weapon. Sort of like the Sword and Shield, dual blades. Definitely in that class, I would say. Very cool looking. Very stylish combos. But you can see it's kind of like, yeah, it's a little slow. Not really impressive attacks. What can we do to change that? Well, if we hold one of our shoulder buttons, we bring up a targeting reticle. And we can shoot the bug out. And you can see the bug is glowing red. And under the gauge underneath our health and stuff also has a little red glow on it. When we recall the bug, we get that red buff. There's a red buff, an orange buff, and a white buff. And you get those by hitting particular parts of a monster. So usually like the red buff is the face, the white buff is the wings, the orange buff is the body. Sometimes it's different depending on the monster. But, see the white buff and the orange buff. The red buff gives you an attack boost. The orange buff gives you a defense boost. And you can see we're walking a little faster. That's the white buff. The red buff also changes our attacks. So now we attack much, much more quickly. And we can basically combo like crazy. So we do sort of get into much closer to the Sword and Shield in what we can do with our abilities. Though it doesn't have the same utility, obviously. And there are a bunch of different moves you can do. I'm not exactly the best Insect Glaiver, so I don't know the combos by heart. But yeah, fast attacking weapon. Its other special thing is the ability to vault. And poot yourself through the air. So if you want to be like... If you want to be just jumping and diving all over the place... not only are you a strong attacking weapon on the ground... You can pretty much launch yourself in the air and do attacks. But also, we have this attack, which lets you bounce off targets. So we can keep pooting along and bouncing off targets and pooting along and bouncing off targets. So this weapon, you can pretty much stay in the air all the time. You do have to get your buffs back. I recommend getting the red and the white buffs and then avoiding the orange buff because they actually last longer individually, I think. But also, it's actually not necessary to have the orange buff for your mobility. So yeah, you can pogo, poot, get mounts. It's a fun weapon. It's actually really simple compared to a lot of the other stuff. Oh yeah, and you don't have to learn every single weapon. You can focus on a couple. Now the 3 ranged weapons. So this is the light bowgun. The light bowgun, you pretty much move around quickly. And you shoot pretty quickly. Its whole thing is like light, fast ranged attacks. Now the thing about ranged weapons is there's sort of a critical zone. So you can see on our reticle that it's just a circle, but if you move a little closer, you get that orange circle. This is the maximum damage range of this weapon. You want to be within this circle to deal the most damage. So you can see you're not exactly that far away from the target. And yeah, this is more about knowing ammo types and knowing how things like rapid fire work. So you can see we rapid fire normal 1 only with this, which is why we get the the 3 shells per shot. We go to normal 2, we just do 1 shell per shot. And there are tons of ammo types. That do various things. So that's sticky shots, they explode. Slicing ammo deals cutting damage. You have poison, paralysis, sleep. Different guns load different ammos. So you kind of have to figure out the gun with the loadout you want in order to use the ammo you want. And the light bow gun, pretty much fire at stuff. You have these little side hops after you fire. Reloads very quickly. And its special ability is to put down these mines. And if a monster walks on these, they explode, or you yourself can shoot them to cause them to explode. It's kind of a... I like to think of it as like a light caster. You move fast, you hit fast, and you apply statuses fast, and all that stuff. So the heavy bowgun, much like the light bowgun, except you heavy. You have these crazy long rolls to evade, but you're pretty much... Ignore the explosions. Those will eventually go away. You pretty much are going to do 1 shot for 1 damage. Not literally 1 damage. I mean 1 damage. I did not mean to hit that. For, it's 1 shot is 1 damage number. It loads a bunch of different things like cluster ammo, and you still get a bunch of the same stuff like sticky ammo, slicing ammo, but it has more options for shells. Its special ability, which I just loaded in on accident, is it's either Wyvern Snipe or Wyvern Heart or Wyvern Snipe, I think are the 2 things. And, well, this is Wyvern Heart. You have a Vietnam flashback and start shooting a crazy machine gun. Wyvern Snipe is a 1-shot, 1-kill type of thing. Oh yeah, there's some cluster. So yeah, cluster ammo, you can see it's sort of a mortar. Oh yeah, Wyvern ammo is like a Wyvern fire from the gun lance, but not. And yeah, this reloads slower. This weapon definitely reloads slower. You can use pretty much any weapon against any monster. I mean, sometimes you'll have a weapon that maybe works a little better. But for the most part, any weapon will do. Because it's also a lot of it's based on your skill level as a player and how well you know your weapon. So like I said, I play the SNS a lot, I play the Gun Lance a lot, and I play the Lance a lot, and the Charge Blade, sometimes the Switch Axe. So I know those better than the other groups. So I'm more confident in bringing those on hunts than I am with, say, this weapon, which is the bow. Bow has that same critical concept, where if you walk too far away, you lose your added damage. And the bow, it's a bow. You fire arrows. There's sort of a charge-up mechanic with it. Oops. So if you hold your attack, you charge it up. But also if you spam the attacks, you do your higher and higher charge shots, which I think is how most people play it now. You can evade after your attacks. And that can also charge up things. Now, like I said, I'm not good with it, so my aim sucks. So you can get evades in between your charges. The special thing it has are files. And files you load on There it is. Files you load on to the arrows, and power coatings in this case just increase the damage of your shots. There are also para, poison, blast, and sleep coatings, and close range coatings. Close range coatings increase your damage up close, as you would expect. I also think do they deal cutting damage? Might be an old thing. You have some special attacks you can do. This little quick shot here. This inherits your charge level, so that power shot, you can actually add that on as damage. Yeah, if you hit both attack buttons, you do that. Dragon Piercer. Oh yeah, and you have a special shot after your power shot, which is that sort of drop a bunch of bombs. And that also inherits your damage from your charge up. So if you charge up to a 3, you do that, and then you can polish it off with a Dragon Piercer. But yeah, the bow is very, like, it's actually very hit and runny. And it's probably the strongest weapon in the game. It's debatable what's the strongest weapon, honestly. Because it kind of is the best weapon in the game is the weapon you're best with type of thing.